What's up, everyone? Good morning and welcome to Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Kyle Nabors along with Sean Hammond. Sean, man, congrats on a nice trip back from Minneapolis. No delays this time, right?
Yeah, I wasn't stuck at Newark Airport for 2 hours like I was a week ago. So that was a promising start to or finish to my week, I guess.
Yeah, and really overall, Sunday, we have a lot to talk about today, and I feel like in a much better mood than I expected to at halftime on Sunday. I don't know about you, but that was really the first time with the way things happened in that first half against the Minnesota Vikings where I was really like, oh no, this might go completely off the rails this year.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like a sinking ship that first half. I mean, that was as bad, and really, not the whole first half. I know they scored that touchdown right before half. You'd say maybe the first like 25 minutes or so of that game, it felt like oh man, is this season just about to go like hit rock bottom right now? Are we about to just they couldn't do anything on offense, and Kirk Cousins looked like a superstar out there against your defense, and he's just they're not doing anything like complicated. They're just moving the chains. Three straight drives they went down and got touchdowns, and 21-3 lead to open that game, and yeah, you're thinking this is not good. This is going to be one of those 48-10 games where the Bears just rolled over, and then the exact opposite happened. They worked their way back into that game. I was as surprised as anybody to see that.
Oh, I mean, it was a brutal first half there. I mean, there's no two ways around it. But we'll get into that. There's a lot to talk about, a lot of negatives. I don't really want to start and dwell on the negative stuff right away because, as the title card said, is Justin Fields making progress? And we're going to talk about that first. But want to make sure if you are not following us on Twitter, go ahead and do so at Kyle Nabors, at Sean Hammond. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. It helps other people find the show. We really appreciate it. But yeah, we got to start with Justin Fields, right? Because that's what this season ultimately comes down to is progress from Justin Fields. And let's not kid ourselves. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, I mean, it was about as bad as it can get for Justin Fields. Luke Getsy early in the week comes out and talks about progress. And I think everyone kind of maybe just not flat out laughed it off, but I think there was definitely some wishful thinking or the thought that the Bears were having some wishful thinking with the way Justin Fields had performed. But man, that second half, that was what you were hoping to see from Justin this season, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Eberflus on Monday used the word poised, and that's what we saw from Justin in that second half. He was poised. It's amazing what a quarterback can do when he has a little bit more time in the pocket. I thought they did they did a much better job protecting him in that second half than maybe we've seen all season. Uh, Although as I say that, I mean, I know they've won a couple of games here, and he's had some time against the Texans and some other teams, but that was one of the best jobs they did protecting him, and that's part of the reason why they were able to make that comeback effort and grab the lead, a 1 point lead there late in the game before ultimately letting it go. But I do think that this was Justin's, that was probably his best half of the season, and I know it didn't end the way that they wanted to, but he was making things happen with his arm and with his legs, and certainly there's some missed opportunities throughout that game. You look at Darnell Mooney missed connection in the end zone in that first half, and that's a play that they went to later, and they were able to connect on that. And you see that he's making these incremental gains, and I think that's exactly what you want. It's not going to all come in one game. It's not going to just happen overnight. And if you can pick out some promising things, a little bit more each game, that's what you want.
You look at that second half or the end of the first half, the Bears go down, score there, and it was kind of like there were some good play calls in there from Luke Getsy, but it was a little bit fluky, and Darnell Mooney having to make a absolutely ridiculous catch. I mean, maybe the catch of the year in the NFL, one of those where you actually just kind of let out one of those sounds that you don't even mean to. It's just like you can't believe that just happened.
I Yeah, watching that live, I could not believe that happened. That was an incredible catch.
But so they go down, they score on that. But what that second that coming out of halftime, that drive coming out of halftime, the Bears go down the field, and that felt like that was Justin Fields there. Like it felt like he really took control of the game and really settled into the moment there, Sean.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's a good a great drive to point out in this game, because you can come out after halftime and it can go one of two ways when you're getting the ball first. You can do what they did and go down and score, and then all of a sudden you're in a one possession game, or it can be a quick 3-and-out and you're punting back to the Vikings, and then you might, wind up down 2 scores and you're right back where you started. I think the key play in that drive was a 3rd and 10 connection to Cole Kmet up the middle. That drive could have stalled out there. I forget exactly if they were in field goal range or not, but they were, sort of around midfield, maybe in field goal range. I'd have to go back and check, but they lost yards on the first down, and then Justin scrambled to pick it up and get back to 3rd and 10. And then, that's a tough situation to be in. And Justin stood in the pocket and found his tight end, who, sure, he hasn't, been finding Cole Kmet as much as maybe some fans wanted to or hoped or during this early part of the season. But that's a key play right there for those two to connect and get that first down. And then you're moving again. And it winds up being a Velus Jones touchdown a few plays later.
Timothy Wire checking in here says he's seen better at sliding in the pocket instead of taking off running. Better pocket presence. Yeah, I would say so. He seemed to what you expected. Well, we talk about the ability of Justin Fields, and we saw it a few times last year of being decisive, keeping his eyes downfield while moving in the pocket. And you saw that more this week, more consistent. And we talked about the offensive line a little bit. You hit on it there earlier, and it was a disaster in that first half. I don't know if it was looks that the Vikings were giving the Bears that they weren't expecting, that they just needed to make adjustments. If it was the first time, Cody Whitehair leaving the week before, you get out there with this starting 5 that finished the game. And if things just were moving fast, if they weren't communicating, you're talking about a really young offensive line at that point. But the offensive line certainly got better. Justin Fields seemed to get better and get more comfortable behind that line. And, you mentioned Cole Kmet. Like, Cole Kmet, not a huge stat line, but like Cole Kmet made a couple big plays. Darnell Mooney made a couple big plays. That's what you needed. Those guys needed to step up. And at the end of the day, like, you felt like when the Bears failed, or at least when Justin Fields failed, it was less on him and a mistake on him, and more really the talent deficiencies on this offense. Like the wide receiving core is still a problem. The offensive line is still a problem. But you felt like that was the reason why the Bears sometimes had trouble in the second half when they did have trouble. And it wasn't because, Justin Fields was struggling.
No, you look at this team as a whole, and particularly at this offense, and you can't have drops like the Dante Pettis drop on 3rd down. That was just brutal. Awful. And I know he's jumping in the air, and that makes it a little bit more difficult, but that's a catch you have to make on 3rd down. Keep your drive alive. He had a drop earlier in the game, and obviously everybody was pointing at the Amir Smith-Marset fumble at the end of the game, which obviously cost them. You don't know if they were going to go down and score. We'll never know if they would have tied that game up or potentially won it if they went for 2 or in overtime, whatever. But you can't have that fumble, and you see that in the receivers. You see that at times with the offensive line, where they're young. They're figuring this out on the go, and they're trying to learn along the way, and that's why you get young guys playing time. Not that I necessarily think either of those receivers I mentioned, is going to be around long term, but certainly your young offensive linemen, you got to give these guys looks. You have to give them. This is part of the growing pains when you're a rebuilding team, and I know the GM won't say that, but that's what this is.
It's a rebuilding team that at least after week 5, you're starting to feel a little bit better about. Even if the wins, if you don't come away with the win, you feel better about where the Bears are at after that. And Rick says, why did Velus only get 3 snaps on offense? Do you think he is struggling with the playbook like Hesser did when he was a rookie? Sean, any thoughts there?
I'm not willing to say that yet. I do think it was just a matter of he missed a lot of time, not just the first couple weeks of the season, but a lot of time in training camp. And he wasn't able to get that same familiarity and all those reps that he missed out on offense. I hesitate to say this because I don't know for sure, but I would think that it's a little bit easier to throw a guy back there and say, okay, return the punt than, if you're jumping in there and trying to run these plays on the offense. But I think we're going to see that keep keep improving as the season goes on. I think we're going to see him more and more involved. And that was, that play where he scored that touchdown was exactly the type of thing that we were expecting, or have been expecting since they drafted Velus. He's going to get involved in a lot of different ways, and they're going to give him some sweeps. They're going to maybe use him out of the backfield here and there. So that's a promising development, I would say.
I expect his role to expand on offense as the season goes on, particularly like if guys like Dante Pettis continue just to flat out drop the ball, the Bears are going to look towards someone like Velus Jones, where they know they have upside and they've invested capital in, but they're easing him in. But not just Velus. The other name I want to mention here and we'll talk about the Washington game at the end of the podcast here, but just kind of looking ahead, I think Velus is going to have more offensive snaps come Thursday night, but also you're going to have N'Keal Harry coming back, and I do expect him to have a role in this offense because the Bears really do need help in the receiving core, Sean.
Yeah, N'Keal Harry is coming off IR. That was the news out of Hallis on Monday, and I know it was a small sample size, but he was really involved those first couple of weeks in training camp. We saw him, catching a lot of passes, getting a lot of opportunities, and I want to throw caution on that because he's missed a lot of time, much like Velus Jones, like I was just saying, he's missed a lot of practice reps and he's only had 1 week back in practice so far. And then this week isn't really a real week of practice, with the short turnaround, they're basically doing walkthroughs most of the week with maybe one actual real practice in there. So I don't know that he's going to solve all your problems. He's certainly not going to. You can't really put that on him. But it is a promising development. He's a guy who you don't have anybody who can replicate his size and he's almost like a tight end out there, but he's got a little bit more speed than a tight end. So that's a good addition. And really, I think he could be a really key addition down in the red zone too.
Yeah, Rick says, will he be a full go on Thursday? Full go, like I don't expect him to come out and play 80 to 90% of snaps, Rick, but like I would expect he's probably going to be on the field for I would say 50% of snaps, somewhere in that range. 40 to 50% would be a fair prediction, I guess you would say, for N'Keal Harry on Thursday night.
Yeah, they opened his practice window just a week ago, and they had 21 days to activate him. And the fact that they went ahead and did it yesterday tells me that he's going to be out there. He's ready to go. There's no more waiting around. But yeah, I do kind of think they're going to ease him in a little bit.
Want to get a quick word for our sponsor of the Bears Insider podcast, Marengo Guns. Always buying, always paying top dollar for your guns, ammo, and military item. Come see the experts at Marengo Guns. Open 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. I got a question for Joe in here from Joe Randazzo asking, how is the GOAT Hub doing? Actually, Hub's doing pretty well. Just saw Arthur posted this morning. Hub has been in inpatient rehab for the last 4 weeks or so. Is going to be coming home soon, making good progress. So it's great to hear. Still some work to be done, but Hub is making good progress, everyone. So now I feel like, Sean, before we wrap up the positives here, and start looking maybe at that first half more. I see a question in here from Ken talking about slow starts. But before we get to that, let's put a wrap on the positive, at least on the Justin Fields side, because I guess what I can say is you finally felt like the Bears were a competent offense. They were what I expected them to look like going into this season. I didn't expect them to be this incredible offense. I expected them to need to make steady strides on a talent deficient offense. And that's exactly what I saw. Like I saw competence. That was kind of the big thing. Matt Eberflus comes in and they talk about accountability, talking about hustle. You got the hit system. And frankly, you weren't seeing that through 4 weeks on the offensive side of the football. It did not look like a competent NFL offense. And you were starting to worry, at least I was starting to worry, of this thing going off the rails. So just the fact that it looked like it was supposed to. Now, the Bears need to build on that on Thursday night against a bad Washington team. But I feel much better about the outlook of this team over the next couple months than I did before Sunday.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. You got to look at the good and the bad when you're looking at any football team. And, I do, we've kind of been saying it, all off season. And I feel like we're still kind of looking at this team, this is kind of, to me, shaping up to be what your classic 8-8 football team is going to look like. You're going to have those good moments. You're going to have those bad moments. Certainly, you'd want to pick up a few more wins during this stretch of the schedule where it's winnable. You're looking at that Commanders game on Thursday and you're saying that's got to be a win if you're this, if you want to pick up a few wins here in 2022. I know that's not really what they're focused on long term, but
yeah, I mean, if you can lose games 29-22, but still feel like you're making progress, you're going to be just fine
good
with it.
Yeah, that's good for where this team is at right now and the talent you have on the roster. You can look at some of the positives with Justin and say, okay, if we can get a receiver in here who can make that catch that Dante Pettis dropped on third down, that drive's still alive. We can keep moving. If we can keep throwing Darnell Mooney the ball and he's going to catch it no matter what the heck, where it is, no matter how many hands he needs, that's a really positive development. And you want to keep seeing more of that. And yeah, it's the offensive line has to put together a full game. We haven't seen them really do that yet. And that's hard to do when you got some young guys. And I know that, you're losing Cody Whitehair. He's a veteran guy who's obviously played a ton of football, and he's not easy to replace. But, I thought that they did a pretty good job in that second half of minimizing the mistakes on the offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive line got much better as the game went on. I mean, you look at that first half, and particularly the interior of the offensive line. Although, I mean, you could kind of go across the board. It was a struggle for all five of those guys.
Everyone had their bad moments.
Yeah. But it felt like particularly on the interior there, Sam Mustipher had another rough start. They were just kind of getting manhandled inside, but the offensive line got a lot better. I mean, as things went on. But let's go ahead and let's go back to the beginning of that game. And Ken said, how come the Bears start slow in the first half of their game? And I gotta start with a bit of a rant here, because part of the reason the Bears start slow is, I mean, how do you get a penalty on your first offensive play? Like, what is happening there? Like, that is absolutely unacceptable from an NFL team.
A delay of game on the first snap of the game. That's impossible. How do you do that? I don't know. And, they didn't have a good answer after the game, and they were basically saying the same thing in so many words. Like, yeah, that was bad. That shouldn't happen. I think somebody had mentioned, I think Kari Blasingame was on the kickoff team, and maybe forgot that he was in there that first. Now they're having some sort of personnel issue.
Yeah, but like that doesn't really hold water, because the first 15 plays are typically,
exactly
15 are scripted. Like, he had to have known that he was going to be in on that first play.
Exactly. And that's, they said, we did the walkthrough yesterday. We did the first 10 plays. We knew exactly what we were doing. And yeah, that cannot happen. And then, things sort of snowballed from there. Certainly that wasn't the only reason why they were bad in that first half, but you got to get off to better starts than what they're doing. It's whether it's just bad execution or penalties or both. They weren't moving the football. I think they were in 14 plays those first 3 drives or something like that, 4 drives. You're not picking up first downs. You're not going to win football games.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a consistent problem so far this season. Is the Bears? You look at the plays run, and obviously the Bears played better in that second half, but I want to say, I'm going with this offhand, I want to say it was like 71-45 in favor of the Vikings and plays run. And it's really tough. I mean, it's almost impossible to win games when you have that kind of inefficiency in terms of play discrepancy, but it's hard to even stay in games. And the Bears found a way to do it, but yeah, you got to have a better start. And offensively, you got to have a better start. Defensively, the Bears got to be better. I mean, that first half, Justin Jefferson was doing whatever he wanted. Kirk Cousins starting a game 18 for 18. Let's be honest. That was embarrassing from the Bears defense. It was not good. The Vikings were able to really do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, they were able to do what they wanted. I think obviously Jalen Johnson's absence was a big factor in why Justin Jefferson had such a good first half. You could easily say, okay, let's put our best cornerback on him and maybe we can slow him that way. You're not going to stop a guy like that. He's going to get his catches and his yards, but maybe not 100 in the first half.
100 it might have been 100 in the first quarter.
Yeah. But then, the big problem I think with this defense is you're just not creating any pressure up front. And you're giving guys like Kirk Cousins, you're giving really every quarterback they've faced so far, you're giving them plenty of time to do what they want back there. And a guy like Kirk Cousins is, while, I know people get passionate about whether Kirk Cousins is good or not, but if you give him time, he's gonna make plays, and he's gonna keep moving the chains. And that's what you saw in that first half. Robert Quinn had a couple of moments where he was close, but they just couldn't seem to get enough pressure to really disrupt what he was doing back there. And that combined with Jalen's absence, Justin Jefferson's running around doing whatever the heck he wants, and that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, the pass rush has been, not there. You go back to that week 1 game, and actually the first couple weeks of the season, when you had some highlights from Dominique Robinson and Travis Gibson, where you had a couple of young guys making plays, and Robert Quinn had a couple sacks early, and it's really kind of just evaporated. And when you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, and you have a young secondary back there, particularly right now without Jalen Johnson, you're out there starting Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon. Kendall Vildor has played better this year and had a nice interception on Sunday. But you're just asking a lot out of a young secondary without being able to get any kind of a pass rush. And too, like, again, we've talked about the linebackers. Even then, like at the second level, like Roquan Smith had the one big game a couple weeks ago, and he's playing okay. But like for a guy that wanted to be paid huge money, he's not making the type of impact plays that you need out of your defense. It's just kind of been mediocre at best, I guess.
Yeah, they just don't have an impact player right now. Nobody is making those game-changing plays, whether it's a sack, whether it's an interception, whether it's a fumble. We've seen Eddie Jackson. Eddie Jackson has played better this season. He's obviously gotten a couple of interceptions. He's generally in the right place at the right time. But with a guy in the secondary, it's so easy to just throw away from them. And we've seen that with Jalen. He doesn't get a chance to get his hands on the ball. And so that's where you need a guy like Roquan Smith to really step up and make some of those plays, or a guy like Robert Quinn on the pass rush and disrupt the pocket. It has to be a team effort, or you're not really able to be effective at all.
Rick here with third down defense was the worst I've seen in forever. Yeah, I believe, let me see if I can find it here. I believe Minnesota finished 12 of 15 on third down, Sean.
Let me see. I think I got it right here. Third down. Yes, 12 of 15.
Yeah, that's just not going to get the job done.
Not at all.
What do you think? We talked about it a little bit with the pass rush already, but have you seen anything with the Bears defense, anything standing out really that kind of gives you a clue of what they can do to get this fixed?
Yeah, the number one thing that stands out to me is, you're not getting pressure with 4. And I know they want, in this 4-3 scheme, they want to ideally rush 4 the vast majority of the time. And a guy like Robert Quinn should be able to get some pressure with only 4 guys rushing. But I think what we've seen, not so much in this Vikings game as much, but in past games against the Giants and the week before that, Alan Williams was calling up some blitzes in some key moments on some of those third downs. And those were effective. And I think that's, while you don't want to do the same thing every single time, or teams are going to catch on to that, I think they do need to continue to mix those blitzes in there, because you're not getting the pressure that you want with 4. So you got to do something, especially on some of those big moments on third down. You got to do something to create a little bit of pressure to make that quarterback's time clock speed up. And I think that they've seen some success with the blitzes in the past, and maybe that's something that they can go back to against a guy like Carson Wentz, who is prone to make mistakes when he's under pressure.
That's what I was going to say. Like, so Kirk Cousins, for all of his faults, he actually does tend to stand in there under pressure, and like it was hard to bring blitzes against the Vikings because you were already struggling in the secondary, and you didn't really want to have to leave your guys one-on-one or on an island with Justin Jefferson. I don't think that's going to be the case on Thursday night against Carson Wentz. Like, Carson Wentz is going to give the ball away if you bring pressure. So, we can start kind of transitioning into that, Sean, as we move towards a half an hour mark here. Thursday night against the Washington Commanders, almost went back to the old there. It's still kind of the Washington football
You
team.
know, I was talking with somebody yesterday, and I referenced the Raiders as Oakland. Still, it's been how many years, and I'm still doing that.
Yeah. It's so easy to do. I can't stop calling the Cleveland Guardians the Cleveland Indians. It just when you've done it for your entire life, it takes a while to get that out of the habit. But this game opened as a pick 'em, and I think this is a game that the Bears not only will they win, I think they should win this game. I really I really dislike this Washington team. Let's put it that way. Anytime you have Carson Wentz at quarterback, I just don't expect you to win football games.
No, this is a game that the Bears should win. You know, you're at home, you got that home crowd. It's basically a toss up. You're playing a 1-4 football team who just lost, is coming off a loss to the Titans. Carson Wentz has been underwhelming, and I think nobody is surprised by that except maybe the people in Washington. And you know, the big thing that I'm looking at too is this Washington defense has created one turnover the entire season. They have one takeaway through 5 games. You know, you should win this turnover battle. I expect the Bears to create a couple of turnovers against Carson Wentz, and you know, especially if Jalen Johnson's back there, that's going to be a huge storyline the next couple of days. Whether or not he's back, he was close. You know, on Sunday against the Vikings, he was out there during warmups. He was moving around. They just decided he wasn't quite there yet, and maybe a couple extra days we'll get him back there, and you can have your secondary you know, back to full strength. You know, the Bears are going to win this turnover battle. You know, the Washington has 1 turnover in 5 games is abysmal. That is so bad. And I think that, you know, if they do win that, they're going to be in good shape in this game.
This is a game, as you mentioned, that like with Washington's lack of turnovers, and again, I at the end of the day don't care, and I don't think Bears fans should care if the Bears really win games or not. You want to see the Bears be competitive, and this is the type of a setup, and it is a short week, so like there's not a ton you can do. The Bears aren't even going to have a real practice this week. It's pretty much walkthroughs. But this is a setup where I really want to see the Bears kind of open up the offense and take some chances and see what Justin Fields can do. Okay, you had a good second half. We saw that last year, right? A couple times, like that Pittsburgh game where Justin Fields had a good half of a game where you really thought that progress was being made. And then that next week, it didn't really build on it. You want to see that Thursday night. And to do that, I think you need to take some more chances. You need to open up the playbook a little more. And if it does result in some ugliness, some plays that don't work out, that's fine. But you got to take some chances here. You need to try and build Justin's confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, keep throwing the football. I know it was probably partially because they were trailing in that game and they needed to throw it more, but we saw them, and you know, we're not even talking about like 40 pass attempts, you know, but however many it was, that was still more than what Justin had been throwing the football the previous weeks. And you want to keep seeing him get some confidence back there and some comfortability in the pocket. And you're not going to do that unless you throw the football. And you know, keep going back to that well. I just feel like they need to keep doing that to see what Justin can do, even if you have receivers dropping passes, even if you have a guy fumbling the ball, you know, on the game-winning drive. You don't want that again. That would not be good if that happened 2 weeks in a row. But you know, you want to see Justin keep throwing the football and keep playing his game and scrambling when he needs to scramble. There were some times in that Vikings game, one of the commenters said it, but yeah, I mean, I felt like he knew where the pressure was coming from, and I don't know that that was maybe one of his best halves in terms of just feeling where it was coming from and deciding whether to get out of the pocket or to move and throw the ball, get the ball out of his hands. You want to see more of that.
Yeah, to extend plays to, I mean, how many times did you see him shuffle to the side or, you know, you could see him trying to decide if he was going to pull it down and run, and he was able to keep his eyes downfield. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, he only threw 21 passes. It was 15 to 21, but you know, maybe that just tells you after 4 weeks where this Bears offense was, where 15 to 21, what is it, 76% completion percentage, 208 yards. That just feels like that's what you should, at a minimum, really expect from any NFL offense. But from the Bears, it just felt like real progress, and you want to see that continue this week. You know, I want to see the Bears. They only ran, like I said, I want to say it was 41 plays. You want to see the Bears run 50 to 55 plays this week. I want to see Justin Fields drop back 25 to 30 times, if not a little bit more. Now, I don't expect the Bears to come out and throw the ball 40 times. They want to have balance, but I want to see a little more rhythm. I want to see the offense a little quicker, a little faster pace. And I that will help build Justin's confidence, I think, Sean.
And you don't necessarily need to throw the ball 40 times against this Washington team for those reasons that we were saying earlier. As long as you take care of the football, if your defense comes away with 1 or 2 turnovers, you should be able to build a lead in this game and play it relatively conservatively. But you're right. Like, we want to see Justin continue to carry over that success from the second half of last week, because you're right. That was one of the things that he never really did last year, is he would have a good half, and then, you'd come out the next game and it would be bad again, or disjointed. And you just want to see some carryover between those good moments.
So David Montgomery finished that game with 20 yards on 12 carries. Now the Bears were obviously behind, got away from the run a little bit, but I mean the one, I guess, the Vikings had struggled to stop opposing running or opposing backfields coming into that game. Do you think the loss of Cody Whitehair is going to have an impact moving forward on the Bears running game, or do you think that was more of just a 1 week thing?
I think it was probably a 1 week thing. I mean, you can't say it's not going to have any effect. But I do think that they found their mojo a little bit in that second half. If they struggle running the ball against the Commanders this week, then I would certainly start to be concerned about that. And it wasn't that David had a bad game either. I mean, he had that one really big catch that went for a bunch of yards. He was their leading receiver in that game, 62 yards on 4 catches. So he's out there making plays, but you're right. I mean, the run game wasn't what we had become accustomed to, which is, 200 plus yards a game, but that's a pretty difficult, that's a high bar. And you're not going to hit that every single game, especially when you get down 21-3 in that first half. You're going to need to throw the football a little bit more. But I think it was good to see David get back out there. I know that kind of limited Khalil Herbert's snaps and his opportunities to get the ball in his hands, but David's a guy that you want to leave out there, and hopefully that this offensive line can have a little bit more success creating holes for him against the Commanders.
That first touchdown for the Bears there, where he had a run up the middle, I want to say it was a 9-yard touchdown run. I thought that was a good play, a gutsy play in the red zone. I believe that was on third down.
Yeah, it was on third down. My first thought as I was watching that play happen was, okay, here's another third down run. People are going to be all over Luke Getsy for this, especially in the red zone, especially in that situation. And David just rips off and runs for a touchdown rather, and would have gotten the first down if he had been stopped at the end zone. And so that's one of those moments where you can point at it and say, oh well, it's good if it works, right?
Well, I wonder. And they're never going to tell us this. I wonder if they had already made the decision that they were going for it on fourth down if they didn't get it.
That's a great point as well. I mean, they very well could have said, we're going to go for this. We need this spark.
The problem with that though is it was 21-3 at the time. So if you don't get it, you kick the field goal. You go into halftime down 2 scores and feeling better.
It's manageable.
At least you put a good drive together and got points before half. Like if they go for it on fourth down and they don't get it, that kind of probably deflates them. But I have to assume by calling that draw play on third down that they had planned on going for it on fourth down, which is aggressive. And I don't mind that, particularly for a team that was struggling. But yeah,
that's something, we could ask Luke Getsy about later today on Tuesday. We're going to speak with him. And yeah, I'd be curious. He might give us a more honest answer than Matt Eberflus on whether or not they're going to go for it there.
So we're going to go ahead and get wrapped up here pretty soon, guys. If you have any more questions, throw them into the chat. John's going to head out to Hallis Hall. We got a short week with the Bears playing on Thursday night. It's kind of just sneaking up on me, even though I know it. It's just like all of a sudden it's like, man, it's already Tuesday morning.
It always does.
We got a lot to prepare for still, and I'm sure the Bears feel the same way, Sean. So give me some keys. What going into this game? I've already kind of given my keys for Thursday night. What do you want to see though?
Yeah, I want to see an improved pass rush. I want to see some pressure on Carson Wentz and just force him to make mistakes because he will make mistakes. And, this is a Washington team that you can create some turnovers on. You got to win that turnover battle. And yeah, more of what we saw in that second half from Justin Fields. Keep that poise in the pocket, keep him clean if you're the offensive line. Certainly you want to improve that run game a little bit from last week, but I'm not all that concerned about that. I just want to keep seeing Justin show those incremental steps. That progress. That's what we need to see. And this is a defense that he should be able to play well against.
Here we go with renewable and rechargeable review. Carter or Eelson getting reps. Sean, you notice anything so far?
No, I haven't. I don't necessarily expect that. I think they're going to, whether fans like it or not, they're going to stick with Sam Muster at center and the same lineup that they had last week.
Yeah, if things had continued in the second half like they did in that first half, you might have seen the Bears made some changes on the offensive line, but they did seem to make the correct adjustments. And that is a positive, not just for the offensive line, but for the coaching staff, that they were able to get that corrected, because it was bad in the first half. The offensive line looked terrible. But given that, I think they're going to give them at least one more week before you start to see any kind of changes. If they come out and struggle on Thursday night, then I think all bets are off. But that shouldn't be an issue against a Washington team that has struggled defensively to get a pass rush and create turnovers. This is an opportunity for this young offensive line to solidify itself, I think, Sean.
Yeah, definitely. They were just getting comfortable, this group of five with Lucas Patrick at left guard, and I would give that a little bit more time, and I think that's what the Bears are going to do.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought here. One thing I will say, and this is always an issue with Thursday night games when you come about a short week. Now you're talking about two, let's be honest, bottom tier NFL team for this season. I'm always worried about it just becoming an absolute slop fest.
Yeah, I think most people around the country are probably like, oh, Bears and Commanders on Thursday night.
Yeah, outside of Chicago and Washington, there's probably not a lot of enthusiasm for this game. But hey, hopefully it surprises us, man.
Yeah, hopefully. And I know there's some rain in the forecast today and tomorrow, but it looks like Thursday is going to be clear. That's a good thing. A little bit chilly, a nice October night game. Certainly the stands should be pretty full for the Bears early on here. And I don't necessarily expect that this is going to be one of those really ugly matchups, but it's hard to know what to expect from this Washington team, because it seems like they're always in one of those slugfests.
All right. Before we get out of here, Sean, let's go ahead and give some predictions for Thursday night. We will be back on Friday morning at 9:30 a.m. to recap Thursday night game. But Sean, who are you taking in this one?
Yeah, you know what? I think the Bears, shake off these last couple of losses, and I think they're going to win this game at home. I got them 21-17 over the Commanders. And really, I just think this is a game that they need to win. This is the type of team you should beat, and I think they're going to do it at home.
I think this is a game that the Bears are going to win. I think it's a game that they're probably going to win. I won't say fairly easily, but I don't think it's going to be in too much doubt. Like, I just really dislike the way this Washington football team is playing. I hate Carson Wentz. So I think this is a game the Bears probably win about 24-14, 24-15. They should be able to get some pressure on Wentz. They should create some turnovers. The offense is still a work in progress, but I think they're going to be able to make enough plays and enough positives that I think Bears fans are going to leave Thursday night feeling better about where this team is. They'll be 3-3, I think. And maybe that doesn't mean a lot for this season in terms of a postseason outlook. And I don't think you should be trying to convince yourself of that. But if this Bears offense makes progress, if that young secondary makes progress, if they can create some turnovers, I think Bears fans are going to go to bed Thursday night feeling a lot better about the future of this franchise, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. I'm kind of in the same boat with you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone who joined us here live on Thursday or on Tuesday morning. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you like the video if you are on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Like I said, it really helps us out. Follow Sean on Twitter at Sean Hammond. Follow myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. Also follow Bears_Insider on Twitter. That'll help you find all of our content here at shawlocal.com, which of course go to shawlocal.com to read all of Sean's content for all of our Bears coverage. With that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Everyone enjoy some Thursday night football. We will talk with you on Friday morning. Everyone have a good week.